Stage 5 is about attaching the two cross members together, and in order to do that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 main parts that hold them together. Quite early on in the build there's a requirement for the rear 3 parts here to be painted in semi-gloss black. So I've just put them on my trusty cocktail sticks, and I put these into expanded foam, take them out to my little spray booth and spray them. I wish I could click my finger as I do that and you'd see them painted, but I can't. Now we're moving on to stage 5, which is to connect the two chassis rails together and start to make it look like a truck. There was a need to paint 3 parts, which I have now done. On Friday, 2 days ago, I tried to click my fingers and do what some other YouTubers do and instantly show them painted, but unfortunately my fingers don't click. Never mind. Anyway, there's the 3 parts painted. We also need to have the servo, which goes near the front end. We need C2, which is a part for that end there. There's a cross member in the middle. There's this part which we made in the last stage, and obviously the parts are just painted go on the back end. Oh, and there's a couple of other little bits here that have to go on. The key tip I give you with the chassis is to make it flat. If you twist it in any way, then your model's not going to sit right, it may not run right, it may not steer straight. Those are all kind of possibilities. So I'd strongly recommend that you've got a flat surface to build it on. That's point 1. Point 2 is do not do all of the nuts up tight until you've got everything connected together. Once you've got it connected together, you can hold it nice and flat and start to do the screws up, and then you'll end up with a nice flat truck. I'll show you that as I go along. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is it's just a little bit fiddly to get it in, is we're going to do the servo first. Make sure we get it the right way around. Just going to move those over a bit so you can see what I'm doing. That will go in there. And there's just 1 screw on this side. I have my screws here already. Interestingly, there are 8 screws that are 10mm long and 13 screws which are 8mm long. Best not to get them mixed up, because in some cases they need to go in a little bit further. And as you can see, there is quite a subtle difference in their length. So another tip, keep them separate and follow your diagram. So the screw I'm putting in here now is a 3/8. That's one of these. Trusty magnetic screwdriver. Okay, that's not right. Tut tut tut, trying to put it in the wrong hole. There you go. Even the great Gonzo gets it wrong. It goes in that second hole, not the third one. I'll get this right in a minute. It's a bit fiddly, isn't it? Put it with the third hand. Once I've got the screw where I want it, we can screw it in. Nearly. Am I going in the hole or not? Well, there you go. I finally got there. I could edit that out, but there you go, warts and all. Put it down till you start to get resistance, which is there. Back it off half a turn. Yeah, we want it loose. I don't advocate that you do both sides at the same time. We put that side on afterwards. So I'm going to put C2 on there. It doesn't matter which order you do these things. This thing has slightly different surfaces, as you can see. That's because that lip there is part of where the cab sits onto. So you must make sure that you put this the right way around. I'm looking at the diagram now, and that's the correct way around there, and that uses 2 3/8 as well. Hopefully I'll get this one a bit better. We're in with that one. Suppose I should have mentioned to make sure you get your chassis rails the right way around to start with. You can probably see on the diagram, these face upwards. That tells you which ones go where. Again, like the servo, pull it up first, all the way, back it off half a turn or thereabouts. So it's loose. And that next one we've got is the Y1, which is this piece here. Again, I'm just looking at the diagram to see if there's any difference. I don't know about you, but I can't see any difference. And usually if it's sort of handed or there's an issue, they will tell you to watch and to note the direction that it goes in. Now where does this one go? It goes after that one, in the left hand one there. So it goes just below that cutout, and this uses another couple of MA12s, which are the 3/8s. No thread lock required, because obviously we're just screwing into plastic. If anybody out there can't click their fingers like me, send me a comment. It'd be nice to know I'm not the only person who's inadequate. Only joking. Right, they're all the way in, back off half, back off half. Quick check it's loose, that's good. Remember making these as well. If we look on the diagram there, and you have to look closely, it does show that the nut goes downwards and the Allen key one goes upwards. In this particular case we need to use some thread lock, and these are going in the 2 diagonal holes, which are 2, 4 behind there. So here's my 2 diagonal holes. Let's hope my thread lock doesn't come out. Come on, nice and gently. There we go, just a touch, not much. That's all you need. And these use 2 MA4s. MA4s are these little 6mm screws. Put it on the correct way around. Now the interesting thing about these is they are to connect another pair of rails to go on the top, because this is the tipper truck, and in some cases you have to adjust these and you end up putting some more thread lock on them. Those obviously don't have an effect on the chassis alignment, so they can just be done up for the moment. And I've just done them up hand tight, quite honestly, because when you do finish doing all of them, you'll go around and check that they're all tight. So that's incorrect. What we do now is we put the rear spring hanger bracket and this unit on there. It shows that being upside down. There is no left and right, so that's the correct way around. There are 3 holes here, quite close together. These again aren't handed, although they have a smoother side, one side, so I tend to leave it on the outside. Now what we've got to put in here are different screws. We start with the MA11s in the top, which are the longer ones. That's if I don't knock them flying. That's got to go through there, and it's going to go through that hole. Butterfingers, that hole there, and the other one will go through the other side. I'm just going to do one for the moment. Got that the correct way up, wrong way, correct way. Okay. This will need to go in here and be screwed into here. Got one in, yippee! It's always getting that first one in is a bit of a pain. We were born with 3 hands, weren't we? And that one into there. And there's a third screw which goes in there, which locks into this piece. But that, interestingly, is a smaller screw, which is the MA12. So you can see you have to read the instructions because some of them have longer screws than others. Tight, back off. Just get into the habit of doing that on all of these. Tight, just back it off a touch. Okay. Now then, we just got to do the pieces which will be the back of the truck. Let's make sure I get it right, get the correct one. I'm just looking at the diagram now. That looks to be correct because that would be the wrong hand. That has to face outwards for the rear outriggers. Good. And these use a couple of MA11s, which are the longer ones. One. Come here. Should use my screwdriver really to just pick them up. This piece here goes in one way up. You'll note it's got a ridge there. It goes in that way, and obviously that way around as well, so that that end faces inward. So it goes like that, and like that. Here we go with the 3 hands again, which I'm simply not going to be able to do. There we go. Patience is a virtue, so they tell me. Right, so that one's in more or less. Another one goes in underneath, just like that. Again, pull it up tight, back it off a touch, pull it up tight, back it off a touch. Now, to my knowledge, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 if you count that on the end. So, there we go, that's the one side of it done. Now, this side is going to go on like so. So obviously we're going to turn it round to do that. I'm going to start with the servo end. I'm just going to have a quick sip of my cup of tea. That's better. Now this side of the servo has 2 MA12 screws, which are the 8mm ones, 3B8s, and they go into these holes just here. Sometimes you will come across this, and this is a classic one here, where that won't go in. I've had this no end of times with Tamiya models, and the reason for it is that that gap there that's left when you put this plastic piece on it is made very difficult to get into because the height of these screw heads, if I'm making myself plain, I don't know whether you can see that. That is a very, very tight fit in there, and it's just about gone in, as you can see. Yep. Just a bit of a struggle with this one. Let's turn it round and try it again. Might help to just get the, let's just make sure I get it in line with the right holes, which is the 1, one, so it's numbers 2 and 3, 1, 2 and 3, so I'm in the right place. I just need to get just move my screws out of the way. Let's see if I can just get that to go in there. That, as you can see, is very tight. Just line it up at the back for the moment, and that will just make it easier for those holes to line up at the front. So there you go, that was a bit of fun. Sometimes the holes aren't quite where you want. Quick tip, just use something to just pull them into line. Those look in line to me. I've been known in the past to actually grind the heads down of those screws slightly to just try and get them in. It's not a particularly brilliant piece of design by Tamiya, I have to say. That one's in all the way, just back it off a touch. That was a bit of a struggle, wasn't it? Hope you can see why I did that one first, because if you put all the rest of it on, you haven't got the flexibility to move the rail. We can do the two at the front now, which are MA12s, which is the shorter ones. I can go in here now. All the way and back off a touch. Built one of these before a couple of years ago for a chap down in Cardiff. He asked me to build it for him. He was particularly into plant, and he had a number of excavators and things, and was made up with a tipper, as I can imagine. Right, let's work our way down now. So the next thing after this will be two MA12s, which are the 13 inch of these again. So daisy. Chassis normally aligns quite well, but it's very easy to twist it. If you do that up tight like that, and you know, by the time you've done half a dozen of them up tight, what was square at that end certainly isn't square at the other end, and hence you end up with a twisted chassis. Like even that, by doing it up tight, has thrown that hole out of alignment. There we go. In and back a touch, in and back a touch. Next thing will be this, and again it goes with that facing upwards, and we have to put a little bit of thread lock on the two holes. Honestly, don't need much at all. It's just enough to make the track sticky, stops the screw from coming undone. This uses these two MA4s that are left. Again, by putting all your parts separately in a, by putting all your parts separately in a tin like this, you can, or a tub, you can see what's left if you've missed any. There you go. These two can be done up because they're not part of the chassis alignment, but they will need to be probably undone again when we come to put the next chassis piece on the top. Right, we're back down to here now with this, and we have two MA11 3B10s on the top, 1, 2 and a 3B8 on the bottom. So I'll just keep those separate. A lot easier once you've started to get it together. Just a bit fiddly to start with. Back it off a touch. Straight in, there we go. That's what we like. I'll do it slightly. Yeah, the 8mm one, I made some 8mm long, which goes into that one there. Put that down so I can hold the other side. That's it, put some pressure on it. Just release it slightly. Right, if I've done my maths correctly, these two go in here. All the way. One in here. We're getting there. Back it off a touch. Back it off a touch. So that should still be able to have a little bit of flexibility in it now because things haven't been done up tight. Let's just make sure we've got all our screws in. There's two in there, and one in there. Two in there and one in there. Come down to here, those four, those and those at the back. And I've got two MA11s left over. I can only imagine I must have put 10 in there instead of 8 because they're 10mm long. I probably thought there's 10 of them. Now, here's the interesting bit. Yeah, if you look at it at the moment, you need to find some lines that will give you an idea of true, which to my mind would be, that's just in the way there. Just turn that out of the way. That's going to be in the way, that one is. We can't do anything about that. I can't do it the other way around because I've got nothing there to do it on. Okay. So what I'm going to do, just for a second, is just take that horn off, just to make it easier. Just pop it there so I know where it is, for alignment purposes. Soon pop it back on afterwards. Just get it back straight where it was, which was there. If I take that off and just leave that, should stay in place. That should allow me now, excellent, to put, I've got 4 corners there, you see, which are all nice and flat. If you keep that held down flat, you can do your screws up there. Try and do a contortionist act here and do both sides without moving the frame. If you can't, you're just going to have to turn it round and do the other side. I'm quite happy that that one's tight. What I'd be inclined to do now is probably do the one at this end. Keeping a bit of downward pressure to keep the chassis nice and square. Okay, We have those done. While it's still there, I'm just going to do the back ones as well, which may be off the video, so just have a quick check. There we go, back on the video now. Do that one up tight. It's very easy to strip the holes in these things, so be careful by putting too much pressure on them. I'm trying to work backwards on myself here. Right, once I've got this one done, there we go. There we go. We can do the others up then. That can go tight. That one can go tight. So it's tight, tight. We've done those. We've done those. We've done those. I've still got the servo to do. We'll do the servo last of all. It's tight. You notice now that the chassis just sits nice and flat on there, no problem at all. Okay, it might be out by a millimetre or something, but that's nothing. We know it's a twist, an obvious twist that we don't want. Like that. Have a quick check how much time I've got left on my video, which is 4 minutes, because my lovely camera cuts out at 30 minutes, you see. So I've got 4 minutes left to get this done. Otherwise I shall be talking to myself. Have you spotted my deliberate mistake? Stupid boy. Oh well, there you go. Paste up your parts out, because then you'll see which bits have been missed off. There you go, you can have a laugh at my expense. Come here. Fancy missing the bracket off. What a plank. Come on. It's going to make me pay for it now. Let's try the top hole, because the bottom one just seems slightly out of alignment. Yeah, that one's gone in okay. Fancy missing that off. Here's one I did earlier. Quick check of the diagram, and I think that should be it. 3 in there. Those have been done. Yep. Yep. Great. Just put the servo horn back on again. Which goes in there. Smaller screwdriver, because this is a 2.6mm screw. And there we go, with 1 minute left to spare out of my 30 minutes on the video. One chassis built. Moving on now to stage 6, which is where we build the steering shaft. There are a few parts that I've already taken out off the C-sprue, the main body, spacers, the pieces that go on either end of it, and these few parts in here as per the instructions. One of the other things we need to do is to just knock up this steering shaft. I'll do that first for what it's worth. The diagrams on the Tamiya manual are actually to scale, they're accurate, so you can use that as your guide. We need to spin on both ends until we're down to 28mm. Still quite a way to go yet. How are we doing? Nearly there. Hope so. I'm running out of puff. I haven't had my Weetabix this morning. Nearly there. That's bang on 28 now. Put the paper flat. If anything, I've gone slightly over. Yep. And you'll note as well that it says to have them in line with each other. That's that done. That's the easy bit. Right. There are some of these small ball connectors that need to go on, so I'm going to do those first. There's a C7 and a C6. They are slightly different. C6 has got 2 holes there, and C7 has got 1. C7 has the MA28, which is the smaller of the 2 balls, and it's got to be held in the back with some liquid cement. No, it's got to be held in the back with some thread lock. There we go, just a small amount on that. That's it. Perhaps you can see why I use this rather than the tubs. It's so much easier. We put on a black nut on the back, which I'll just carefully try and get into place. There we go. Get almost had it, and get that started. There we go. We're away. Again, this doesn't have to be massively tight. If it was, you'd split all the plastic. It's just enough. There you go. The thread lock will hold it. So that's C7 done for the back for the moment. Let's do C6, the front one. And the diagram's showing that we use the come here, the bottom hole, not the top hole. And it goes in that bottom hole there. A little bit of the old thread lock, come on, be beauty. And the other nut we have here will go on top of it like so. Get it started. No, you can't see that, but one does one's best to hold on to it. Might be too better to wind that by hand to start with. There we go. And tight. So that's C6 through the bottom with the ball facing that way. That's C7. The other end facing that way. There's a shaft that goes through the middle. Which I thought I'd picked up, and I haven't. And there needs to be some grease on it. So I'm just going to find some grease. Oh, we're onto a new tube. New tube of grease. Just puncture the end, like so, and we're in. Just a little bit on here, all the way down the shaft. So I'm just going to hold one end, just run that round. There we go. Now, it suggests, or tells you, to use an MA21 metal bearing, which is a solid bearing. You can, if you wish, as I'm doing here, is replace it with a metal roller bearing, exactly the same size. It's called a 1150 metal bearing. You get these bearing sets off the internet. It then tells you to put that collar on there, put that inside there, and then you've got to push that in until it's tight, like so. Nice tight fit, and we're in. Now on the other side there is a very small bush that stabilises that end of the shaft, and that goes into that end there. So now we have that. It's come out again, but it'll stay there once the ends are on. There we go. Make sure we get the right way around. These have to be 90 degrees offset to each other. So we just do the first one, doesn't matter where we do it really. These little screws should have thread lock on them as well. It might be easier to just put it onto the shaft rather than onto those very, very small screws. There's a little bit in that end, a little bit in that end. Try again, get the right way around, which is that way. Like number 7 goes on that end. Pick up my little screw, which I just put down here, and away we go. Again, it doesn't need to be massively tight if you're using thread lock. There we go. Now I'm looking at the diagram over here now, and it shows that that's the one with the double, so that must be that way around. And it shows it up there like that, and it shows this one going on here like that, 90 degrees. There we go, 90 degrees to that one. Pull this little screw in. Look at that, straight in. There we go. As you can see, the one is 90 degrees to the other. Although it spins all the way around, when it's actually fitted on the side of the shaft, it only moves a short distance to control the steering. There's the steering rod that goes with it. That's number 6 done. Moving on to stage 7, which is attaching the steering servo to the frame. So we'll just position the frame as per the picture. I was just checking to see if that's in the camera for you. The servo is going to go on the side here. This unit's going to go here, and then the rod connects between the two. Just checking to see if there needs to be any thread lock on these ones. Interestingly, on the servo ones, no. And these use the MA3s, which are the smaller screws. MA3s 3x8s. So that's these 3. Now they go in the hole just past the screws. There. There and there. Okay. So coming together. That didn't work. Let's try a different one. Straight in. Look at that. Just loose for them up. Number 2 in, and number 3 in. There we go. 1, 2, be. And there's your servo fixed to the side. 4 holes we've got left here will be for the 4 holes in that, and strangely these need thread lock where the other ones didn't. It's funny how sometimes they recommend thread lock and sometimes they don't. I suppose there's potentially some vibration in this, but not in the servo. But I would have thought the servo would still possibly move slightly with the weight of turning the wheels. Oh well, let's get this the right way around. Always look at your diagram, it shows that thick collar faces upwards and that faces outwards. Okay, so that's going to go on like that. This time we're using slightly longer screws because of the thickness of the plastic that we're going through. And the first one's going to go in there. Second one is going to go in there. Again, my tip would be don't bother doing them up until you've got all 4 in. To me, parts are manufactured so well the way they all align up, but I have had odd occasions where things don't quite line up properly, and so it's worth not doing the screws up tight until you've got them all in. Those two are tight. Tight, tight, and that is good. What we do now is we just fit this ball on here. It doesn't mention anything about grease, but I always just put a touch of grease on these, very simply because it's a moving part and it probably would wear the plastic less. But they don't actually tell you to put grease on it. If you're not a particularly strong person like me, a pair of pointed pliers is very handy for doing this job. Likewise the one underneath there. Just put the 2 on together, line them up and click. And there we have it. As the servo turns, it moves this one backwards and forwards, which moves the wheels backwards and forwards. That is stage 7 complete.